by the Polisario Front, that is calling for a referendum on independence. Following his visit to Laayoune, Mr. Ross will head to Algeria for talks. Algeria also lays claim to the region. On Thursday, during an address given on the occasion of South Africa's Human Rights Day, President Jacob Zuma called on South African police to show greater respect for citizens' rights. President Zuma referred to the massacre of 34 miners in Marikana and said that police officers would be required to subscribe to an official code of conduct soon to be put in place.
The man widely regarded as the father of modern African literature has died. Nigerians are mourning the death of acclaimed author and poet Chinua Achebe, who died in Boston Hospital at the age of 82. We have more on that story in this report by CFI.
Acclaimed Nigerian novelist and poet Chinua Achebe has died at the age of 82 in a hospital in Boston in the United States. Achebe is considered by many as the father of modern African literature. He gained international recognition with his novel Things Fall Apart, which was published in 1958. It was translated into 50 languages and has sold more than 10 million copies worldwide.
I write to be read, to be acknowledged. In other words, it means what I've written has made some impact somewhere.
Things Fall Apart is about traditional Igbo culture's collision with British colonialism in the 1800s in Achebe's native southeast Nigeria. It was the first book to tell the story of colonialism from an African perspective.
I think that a lot of people, a lot of writers who are working, today really aspire towards writing a book like Things Fall Apart that sort of had an impact on world literature in the same way.
Chinua Achebe's novels, poetry, and essays address poor governance and corruption in Africa. Nelson Mandela read Achebe's work while in prison in South Africa and once referred to him as a writer in Today, Nigerians are mourning the loss of a great writer and intellectual.
Chinua Achebe was an icon, one of the best, and his death is a great loss to Nigerians.
I feel very sad. It's a great loss to the literary world. It's someone who's had great influence on African literature, whose impact will be greatly missed by everyone.
Chinua Achebe spent most of his latter years in the United States, where he lectured at universities. His last book, There Was a Country, A Personal History of Biafra, was published in 2012. It is a memoir about the conflict.
We now take our second break. Welcome back. The Gambia Scorpions yesterday lost 3-0 to highly fancied Ivory Coast in the latest round of the 2014 World Cup qualifiers. The Scorpions held their own against Africa's top-ranked side until a second-half show of pure class from the Elephants, who were missing some notable names, including the country's top marksman Didier Drogba. Dutch-based forward Wilfried Bony opened the scoring with a penalty after Yankuba Mal Cisse was adjured to pull an Ivorian player inside the area. The Scorpions' defense line creaked after that opening goal, conceding 2 more goals courtesy of midfielder Yaya Toure and Lille forward Solomon Kalou. The defeat to Ivory Coast means Luciano Mancini's side is yet to win a single game in the qualifiers, which leaves the side rooted to the bottom of the group. And before we go, a reminder of our headlines. The Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, Dr. Aissatou Njie Saidi, has discussed potential investment ventures with members of the National Black Growers Council in the United States. Stakeholders in the health sector have scaled up efforts at increasing awareness of the dangers tuberculosis poses to the lives of people. South African President Jacob Zuma has urged the country's police to respect the rights of the citizenry as South Africans mark Human Rights Day. And Nigerians are mourning the demise of Chinua Achebe, the man widely regarded as the father of modern African literature. That brings us to the end of the news. From me, Ndeko Madamba, do have a pleasant day.
The Gambia, independent from 18th of February 1965. It is an enclave of some 4,000 square miles, extending eastwards from the sea for some 300 miles along both banks of the River Gambia. The Gambia is remarkably rich in bird life, but as is typical with sub-Saharan West Africa, much of the land is now, sadly, savanna with little forest area. In 1977, the then President of the Gambia, Sir Dawda Jawara, declared in the Banjul Declaration,
"It is a sobering reflection that in a relatively short period of history, most of the larger wildlife species have disappeared, together with much of the original forest cover. The survival of wildlife still remaining and the setting aside of protected natural habitats for them, such as is a concern of all of us. It would be tragic if this priceless natural heritage, the product of millions of years of evolution, should be further endangered or lost for want of proper concern. This concern is a duty we owe to ourselves, to our great African heritage, and to the world.
This principle is still upheld by the present government, with responsibility vested in the Director for the Department of Parks and Wildlife Management, Dr. Almami Kamara.
This is not my first visit to the Gambia. I lived in the country for 7 years from 1967, starting work at the compound of what was then the Agricultural Research Station in Yaoundé. Early in 1968, a farmer from Lamine village called Kalilu complained to the officer in charge of the Gambia Forestry Division, a man called Eddie Brewer, that a leopard was killing his domestic pigs. He demanded that Mr. Brewer shoot the leopard. It transpired that the leopard lived